The Boeing 767-300. There has never been a more iconic plane to fly in the skies. Except for the 747, as it was the first wide body to ever exist, and the A380 being the largest civil plane ever, and the 737 as it's the most popular passenger plane ever, and the A320 as it's the first plane that featured fly-by-wire, and the A300 as it was the first plane with 2 engines to be able to cross the Atlantic. Okay, so the 767 isn't that iconic. In fact, the most iconic thing about it is probably that it's the same age as AIDS. Oh well, this doesn't matter because this one is served by an airline which is fairly close to my heart. It's my most flown loyal airline. I even collect those Avios points and, oh yeah, it's British. So yeah, around the time that this video is published, British Airways retires their last Boeing 767-300. So I had to book a flight on it. They don't fly anywhere exciting anymore, sadly, so I had to go to Sweden. Yeah. Anyway, on to the review. Welcome everyone to another video. In this video I will be taking a very special plane to Stockholm. As you know by the beginning of this video, I'll be flying the British Airways Boeing 767-300 from London's Heathrow Airport to Stockholm's Arlanda Airport in Sweden. This is flight 0780, which is set to depart at 1:20 p.m. I did, however, get notified when booking this flight that it usually runs 30 minutes late. I arrived at Heathrow in plenty of time. This was one of British Airways' short-haul flights, so it leaves from Terminal 5 from the A building, which is where 99% of all British Airways short-haul flights leave from. I checked in at home and didn't need to check any bags as I was going for the day, so all I had to do was head through one of Terminal 5's 2 security points. After security, I had a rough 2 hours to kill. There are plenty of shops and restaurants in Terminal 5, including Wetherspoons, which I usually hit up, but not today. There is also Wagamama's, and my choice of today, a more light snack, which is pret-a-manger. Despite having a very confusing name, there has been a lot in the news around this exact pret-a-manger. Recently, after a 17-year-old girl ate a sandwich from this place and died on a British Airways flight after having an allergic reaction with the sesame seeds on the bun. I today, however, had an egg and bacon sandwich with a Coke. After this, I spent the following hour and a half plane watching out of Terminal 5's huge windows. I really admire Terminal 5. It is one of my favourite terminals in the world. Now after waiting, it was time to board, and so I did. The boarding is also automated. In fact, apart from getting my sandwich, I haven't had to talk to anybody today. British Airways used to fly their 767s to places they now fly their 787-8s like Baltimore and Newark. I also used to fly them a lot when flying to Washington Dulles. Today they now only fly inside of Europe. With this in mind, they've had to modify the cabins for short-haul routes. They now have no regular lie-flat business class or first class. They have now converted the whole cabin into their Eurotravel layout, which is very similar to one of their A320s. My seat is located near the rear of the cabin and is 33K. There is no IFE screen, which I will get onto later. There is also a tray table, and the legroom is quite decent for a 6'2" person like myself. The tray table is standard, folds down, moves backwards and forwards like most. In the seat back pocket there are safety cards and various magazines. The flight was delayed but only by 15 minutes, which is half the time Google Flights said they would be delayed. The reason for being late was the baggage, but due to my seat being where it was, I could keep up with how it was doing. After bags were on and doors were closed, we set off. Our departing runway was runway 27 right. The British Airways 767, as I just said, flies to high-demand destinations in Europe. These are Amsterdam, Frankfurt, Stockholm, Rome, Athens, Istanbul and Edinburgh. At the time of me flying, British Airways still had 5 of these planes operating these 7 routes. I'm hoping maybe British Airways will maybe replace these with maybe the upcoming 797, which will be a middle-of-the-market aircraft. It would be great to see British Airways operate it. I have to admit, the best crew of any airline would have to be a draw between Virgin Atlantic and British Airways. This has nothing to do with me being British myself, but one firm example is just as the aircraft was taxiing for departure, and as the crew came around the cabin, some crew members often question my GoPro stuck to the window. Most cabin crew shrug it off, but some question it as if it needs a Wi-Fi or cellular connection. It can't be recording whilst the aircraft is taking off or landing. Mine doesn't, so it's perfectly alright to have there. But as the hostess questioned it, and after realising it was fine, she said, "I'll tell the pilot to do a good takeoff," which was a nice gesture, and it's the little things that crew members do to just make them seem more likeable. And now I'll shut up for a bit and let you enjoy one of the last takeoffs of a British Airways 767. Flight time for today's journey was 2 hours and 30 minutes. Not that long of a flight, but for me it was a little too long without an IFE screen. As I said, British Airways have had to adapt their 767 cabins from long haul to short haul, and I'm wondering whether they could have just left the IFE screens in. I understand it would have been the older version, but in retrospect some of British Airways' 747s still run the old IFE system. Also on longer flights such as the Athens and Istanbul flights, these screens would have been very helpful for passengers. Plus, still hidden in the armrests, there are still the remotes for the screens. On the flight today, there was only a complimentary beverage for passengers in the business class, which is actually closer to economy plus in my opinion, but is labelled as business on Google Flights. The rest of the plane were given option for food and drink, but of course these would have to be purchased. The woman sat next to me moved halfway through the flight, and so I had both seats to myself. This gave me a chance to spread out a bit, and as I did, I noticed that the cabin was relatively empty. It wasn't that noticeable, but there were a few rows on the other side of the plane I could see that weren't occupied. Soon enough, however, the aircraft began its descent into Stockholm. The approach was stunning as the sun was setting and you could see the glistening of the lakes below. So now I'll let you enjoy this landing into Stockholm.
Please take care when opening overhead lockers as items may have moved and could fall out and cause injury. Before leaving the aircraft, please make sure that you have your personal belongings with you, and remember that smoking is not allowed until you have reached a designated area. All of us at British Airways and the One World Alliance would like to welcome all our customers who live here in Stockholm and I wish those of you visiting an enjoyable stay.
I'm in Sweden for 4 hours, so I'm just, walking outside just to breathe in the air, the Swedish air. It's good air. Right, I'm gonna go back in. As you heard me say, I only have 4 hours in Sweden, so I headed back through security and spent the remaining 4 hours eating. So with this, I would like to thank you very much for making it to the end of this video. Leave a comment if you did, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.